All right, so you guys sent over a ton of stuff about Russia and, well, the world stage. And honestly, I'm a little nervous to jump into this one.
It's
Yeah, it is fascinating.
Putin himself on YouTube,
Yeah.
some pretty heated Reddit threads,
Yeah.
and a Telegraph article that honestly has me like side-eyeing every headline I see now.
It really is fascinating how these pieces from a snippet of Putin himself to everyday people are saying
Right.
all kind of point to this like feeling of, I don't know, a world teetering on the edge. You know, it's a stark reminder that what seems like an isolated event can send these shockwaves across the globe.
For sure. Like one of the things that's really freaking me out now is this idea of Russia maybe being behind some seriously sketchy stuff
Yeah.
happening in Europe.
Yeah.
The MI6 chief in that Telegraph article did not mince words.
No.
Called it a staggeringly reckless campaign of sabotage.
Yeah, to really grasp the weight of that statement, we need to understand what hybrid warfare is,
Okay.
which the article mentions.
Okay.
Think of it like a boxing match.
Where one fighter plays by the rules, throwing punches and jabs. Yeah. But the other fighter, they're not just boxing. They're kicking, spitting, throwing sand in your eyes.
Oh, wow.
That's hybrid warfare.
Okay.
This messy, unpredictable blend of tactics that aims to destabilize their opponent.
Okay, that analogy actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So the article gives some specific examples of the suspected sabotage, right?
You bet. There's a DHL plane crash in Lithuania,
Right.
which tragically killed a crew member.
Wow.
Then there were those suspicious fires at DHL facilities in Germany and Birmingham.
Hmm.
And let's not forget the massive fire that tore through Warsaw's largest shopping center back in May.
Gosh.
These incidents are definitely raising eyebrows, although it's crucial to remember that we don't have concrete proof of Russian involvement just yet.
Right, it's all very hush-hush.
Yeah.
But the article does suggest some possible reasons why Russia might be doing this.
Right.
So what's the end game here?
Well, imagine you're living in a country where plane crashes and fires are suddenly becoming commonplace.
Yeah, that would be terrifying.
You'd be pretty hesitant to support any policies that could be seen as poking the bear, wouldn't you?
Probably not.
So that's one potential goal, sowing fear and uncertainty to undermine support for Ukraine.
So it's a way of saying, don't mess with us or else.
Exactly. It's a power play, a way to test the waters and see how far they can push without triggering a full-blown military response from the West.
Yeah. Okay, that's scary.
Yeah.
So this brings us to the YouTube clip of Putin congratulating Trump on his election victory back in 2016.
Right?
I watched it, and honestly, knowing what we know now about Russia's actions, it's kind of creepy, isn't it?
Yeah, it is interesting how a seemingly innocent congratulatory message can take on a whole new meaning when viewed through the lens of subsequent events.
Yeah.
It's almost like looking back at an old photo and noticing a detail you never saw before.
Right.
A detail that suddenly changes your entire perspective on the image.
Yeah, it's chilling. Like, what was Putin really thinking when he delivered that message? Was this all part of some grand plan?
We can't know for sure what was going through his mind at that moment.
Right.
But what we can do is analyze the message itself, the
Yeah.
language he used, the tone he conveyed.
Okay.
There might be clues hidden in plain sight, hints of a strategy that was already taking shape back then.
Wow, I never thought of it that way. It's like a puzzle piecing together these seemingly unrelated events
Yeah.
to understand the bigger picture.
And that's where those Reddit discussions come in. They give us a glimpse into how people are reacting to all of this.
Yeah.
The fears, the anger, the skepticism. It's a fascinating microcosm of the global conversation happening right now.
Yeah, I was scrolling through those threads, and the range of opinions is crazy.
Yeah.
There are calls for retaliation people, cracking dark jokes, and some seriously out there conspiracy theories.
Yeah, it highlights the emotional impact these events are having on people.
Right.
The sense of vulnerability, the desire for answers, and sometimes the need to find someone or something to blame.
Let's dive into some of those comments.
Okay.
One user simply wrote, "Then do the same." Clearly advocating for a tit-for-tat response.
Yeah. That's a very human reaction.
Yeah.
An instinctive urge to fight back when feeling threatened.
Right.
It reflects this desire for swift justice, for someone to pay for the perceived wrongdoing.
For sure.
However, as we've discussed, this is a complex situation with no easy solutions.
Right.
A retaliatory strike could escalate things in unpredictable and dangerous ways.
Yeah, that makes sense. There's another comment that reads, "Eggs raised in price because of bird flu. It's too late for us."
Wow.
It's pretty cynical.
It reflects a sense of resignation, a feeling of helplessness in the face of overwhelming global events.
Yeah.
They see these incidents, they feel the impact on their daily lives, and they feel powerless to change the course of things.
I get that. And of course, no internet forum is complete without some good old-fashioned conspiracy theories. One commenter wrote, Soviet religion says in the art not one human will be allowed to escape.
Wow.
I mean, come on. Conspiracy theories often thrive in environments of uncertainty and fear.
Yeah.
They offer a simplified explanation, a sense of order in a world that feels chaotic and out of control.
Right.
While it's important to acknowledge the anxieties that fuel these theories, we must also be cautious and rely on credible sources of information.
That's a good point. It's clear that this whole situation with Russia is causing a lot of anxiety.
Absolutely. And this brings us to the heart of the matter.
Okay.
The implications of all of this for global stability and the future of democracy.
Okay, let's unpack that. The Telegraph article warns that if Putin is allowed to succeed in Ukraine, he will not stop there.
Right.
Our security, British, French, and transatlantic, will be jeopardized.
Those are some serious words.
Seriously.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, what would a Russian victory actually look like?
Yeah.
And how would it change the world?
Imagine a scenario where Russia, emboldened by its success in Ukraine,
starts to assert its dominance more aggressively in other parts of Europe. Countries that were once part of the Soviet sphere of influence might feel pressured to realign themselves with Moscow.
Right.
This could fracture the unity of the European Union and weaken NATO, essentially redrawing the map of Europe and the balance of power in the world.
That's a scary thought. It's not just about territory.
No.
It's about the values those territories represent.
Exactly. It's about the future of democracy itself. If a country that openly disregards international law and uses military force to achieve its goals is allowed to succeed, it sets a dangerous precedent.
Right.
It emboldens other autocratic regimes and weakens the global commitment to democratic principles.
That's a really important point.
Yeah.
It's easy to get caught up in the immediate headlines and lose sight of the bigger picture, the battle for the soul of democracy.
And that battle is being fought on multiple fronts.
Right.
We've talked about hybrid warfare and covert action.
Yeah.
But there's another crucial aspect we haven't touched on yet. The battle for hearts and minds. The war of information.
You mean like propaganda and disinformation campaigns?
Precisely. In today's interconnected world, information is a weapon.
Wow.
It's a tool that can be used to manipulate public opinion, sow discord among allies, and undermine trust in democratic institutions.
So it's not just about physical sabotage and military maneuvers.
No.
It's also about controlling the narrative, shaping how people perceive events, and influencing their decisions.
Exactly. And this is where things get really tricky.
Okay.
In the age of social media and 247 news cycles, it's harder than ever to distinguish between fact and fiction,
Right.
truth and propaganda.
So how do we navigate this information battlefield?
Right.
How do we know what to believe?
That's the million-dollar question. And it's one that each of us has to grapple with individually.
Yeah.
There's no easy answer, no magic formula.
Right.
But there are things we can do to be more discerning consumers of information.
Like what? Give us some tips.
First and foremost, be critical of the information you encounter. Don't just blindly accept everything you read or hear at face value, especially online.
Right.
Consider the source.
Okay.
Who's behind this information?
Right.
What are their motivations? Look for evidence. Are there verifiable facts to support the claims being made?
Okay.
Be willing to question your own biases.
Okay.
Are you more likely to believe information that confirms your existing beliefs, even if it's not entirely accurate?
So it's about being an active participant in the information landscape.
Yes.
Not just a passive consumer.
Exactly.
It's about engaging with information, critically questioning everything.
Yes.
And demanding evidence.
Precisely. And don't be afraid to seek out multiple perspectives.
Okay.
Get your news from a variety of sources, including those that you might not agree with.
Right.
Exposing yourself to different viewpoints can help you challenge your own assumptions and develop a more nuanced understanding of complex issues.
That makes sense. It's about breaking out of our echo chambers.
Yes.
And engaging with different ideas, even if they make us uncomfortable.
And if you see something online that seems fishy, don't be afraid to call it out.
Okay.
Report suspicious activity, engage in constructive dialogue,
Right.
and help spread awareness about the dangers of disinformation.
It sounds like we all have a role to play in this information war,
We do.
even if it's just being more mindful of what we share and consume online.
Absolutely. And it's not just about protecting ourselves, it's about safeguarding our democracies and preserving the integrity of information itself.
Right.
If we allow truth to be eroded by propaganda and disinformation, we risk losing the very foundations of our societies.
The stakes are pretty high then.
They are.
It's not just about geopolitical rivalries, it's about the future of truth and freedom.
Exactly. And that brings us back to the individual.
Okay.
It's easy to feel helpless in the face of these global challenges, but each of us has the power to make a difference.
So what can we do besides being more critical of information?
Well, for one, we can support organizations that promote peace, democracy, and human rights. There are countless NGOs working tirelessly to combat authoritarianism, protect vulnerable populations, and build a more just and equitable world.
So it's not just about staying informed, it's about taking action,
Yes.
however small, to support the values we believe in.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of conversation.
Okay?
Talk to your friends and family about these issues.
Right.
Share what you're learning,
Right.
challenge each other's assumptions,
Okay.
and engage in thoughtful debate.
It's about having those difficult conversations even when they're uncomfortable,
Yes.
because that's how we learn and grow.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And through those conversations, we can raise awareness, foster understanding, and build a more informed and engaged citizenry.
It's easy to feel overwhelmed by the scale of these problems.
It is.
But it's important to remember that we're not powerless.
Absolutely. We have agency,
Yeah.
and we have a responsibility to use that agency to make a positive impact.
So let's not give in to fear or apathy.
No.
Let's stay informed, engage in meaningful dialogue,
Yes.
and work together to build a better future.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Okay.
It's time to step up and be the change we want to see in the world.
I love that.
And that starts with understanding the challenges we face. So let's dig a little deeper into this concept of covert action.
Yeah, the MI6 chief's statement about covert action against Russia really piqued my curiosity.
Yeah.
He even compared it to the secret war fought against Nazi Germany during World War II.
Right.
It sounded like something out of a spy thriller.
It is a world shrouded in secrecy, but it plays a crucial role in international relations.
Yeah.
Think of it as a shadow war, a chess game being played out behind closed doors where the stakes are incredibly high and the consequences of failure can be devastating.
So what exactly does covert action entail? What are we talking about here?
Covert action can take many forms: gathering intelligence, spreading disinformation, sabotaging infrastructure, supporting rebel groups, even assassinating key figures.
Gosh.
It's a murky world where the lines between right and wrong are often blurred.
It sounds incredibly risky. How do they decide when to take covert action?
The decision to engage in covert action is not taken lightly.
Right.
It usually involves a complex assessment of risks and benefits,
Uh-huh.
with input from intelligence agencies, military leaders, and top government officials.
Yeah.
The potential consequences of failure must be carefully weighed against the potential gains.
And what about the ethical implications? I mean, some of these actions sound pretty questionable.
The ethical dimensions of covert action are complex and often debated.
Right.
Some argue that it's a necessary tool for protecting national security, while others condemn it as a violation of international law and human rights.
Yeah.
The truth is, there's no easy answer. The ethical considerations of covert action often depend on the specific circumstances and the perceived gravity of the threat.
It's a tough call. It seems like a very gray area.
It is, and it's one of the most challenging aspects of international relations.
So how does covert action relate to what we've been talking about with Russia?
Well, the MI6 chief statement suggests that Western intelligence agencies are actively working to counter Russian aggression, potentially through covert means.
Okay.
This could involve anything from disrupting their disinformation campaigns to sabotaging their military operations.
It's a reminder that there's a whole hidden world operating alongside our everyday lives.
Yeah.
A world where the rules are different and the stakes are incredibly high.
And the actions taken in this hidden world can have a profound impact on the events that shape our world.
It's mind-blowing
It is.
when you think about it like that.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is true. But
Yeah.
amidst all the uncertainty and anxiety,
Right.
there were also like glimmers of hope in those Reddit threads.
Oh, yeah.
Not everyone was calling for like these drastic measures or succumbing to fear.
Right.
Many expressed a more balanced and thoughtful perspective.
Yeah, I remember some of those comments. One that stuck with me said, Russia has been a problem for its entire existence.
Yeah.
This is just the latest crisis. The
Yeah.
sooner people realize this, the better. Kind of a sobering reminder, isn't it?
It speaks to a historical awareness that's often missing from these kinds of discussions.
Yeah.
Understanding the long and complicated history between Russia and the West is crucial for grasping the nuances of what's happening today.
Right.
It's not just about this one event or this one leader. It's about centuries of mistrust,
Yeah.
competition, and conflicting ideologies.
So zooming out from the immediate crisis, what are the potential long-term consequences here? The Telegraph article makes it sound like things could get really bad.
Well, the article uses some strong language warning that if Putin is allowed to succeed in Ukraine,
Right.
he will not stop there,
Right.
and that our security, British, French, and transatlantic, will be jeopardized.
Right.
Those are pretty serious implications.
Seriously, it makes you wonder, what would a Russian victory actually look like, and how would it change the world?
Imagine a scenario where Russia, emboldened by its success in Ukraine, starts to assert its dominance more aggressively in other parts of Europe.
Right.
Countries that were once part of the Soviet sphere of influence might feel pressured to realign themselves with Moscow.
Okay.
This could fracture the unity of the European Union,
Gosh.
weaken NATO, essentially redrawing the map of Europe and the balance of power in the world.
That's a scary thought. It's not just about territory, it's about the values those territories represent.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
about the future of democracy itself.
Right.
If a country that openly disregards international law and uses military force to achieve its goals is allowed to succeed, it sets a dangerous precedent. It emboldens other autocratic regimes and weakens the global commitment to democratic principles.
That's a really important point. It's easy to get caught up in the immediate headlines and lose sight of the bigger picture,
Yeah.
the battle for the soul of democracy.
And that battle is being fought on multiple fronts.
Right.
We've talked about hybrid warfare and covert action, but there's another crucial aspect we haven't touched on yet.
Okay.
The battle for hearts and minds. The war of information.
You mean like propaganda and disinformation campaigns?
Precisely. In today's interconnected world,
Right.
information is a weapon. It's a tool that can be used to manipulate public opinion, sow discord among allies, and undermine trust in democratic institutions.
So it's not just about bombs and missiles anymore.
Not at all.
Mm-hmm.
Disinformation campaigns, cyber attacks, the manipulation of social media.
Wow.
These are the new tools of warfare. It's about controlling the narrative,
Right.
shaping public opinion, and sowing discord within your opponent's society.
It's almost like a battle for hearts and minds, like you said earlier.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in this new battleground, perception is reality.
Wow.
Whoever can control the narrative can influence the outcome of events.
So what does this mean for the future of warfare?
It means we need to be prepared for a new kind of conflict,
Yeah.
one that's fought in the shadows,
Right.
and where the lines between truth and falsehood are increasingly blurred. It's a conflict where victory may not be measured in land conquered or enemies vanquished, but in minds swayed and narratives controlled.
It's a pretty daunting prospect.
It is, but it's not a reason to despair. Just as our adversaries are adapting to this new landscape,
Right.
so too must we. We need to invest in cybersecurity, promote media literacy, and develop strategies for combating disinformation.
Oh, okay.
We need to be more discerning consumers of information, more critical thinkers, and more active citizens.
It sounds like this new kind of warfare requires a whole new way of thinking, a whole new set of skills.
It does, and it's a challenge we must embrace.
Yeah.
The future of our democracies, our freedoms, and our very way of life may depend on it.
Well, that's a sobering thought.
Yeah.
It seems like we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, from suspected sabotage to Reddit reactions, from hybrid warfare to the shadowy world of covert action.
We have.
It's been a wild ride, and honestly, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed.
It's understandable to feel overwhelmed. These are complex and challenging issues, and there are no easy answers. But I hope this deep dive has given you a better understanding of the forces at play,
It has.
the stakes involved, and the choices we face as individuals and as a society.
It definitely has. It's made me realize that even though the world feels increasingly uncertain and complex, we're not powerless. We can choose to be informed,
Right.
to be engaged, and to make our voices heard.
Exactly. And that's what gives me hope. In the face of these daunting challenges, there are countless individuals and organizations working tirelessly to promote peace, defend democracy, and uphold truth. And each of us has the power to join that fight.
So what's the takeaway here?
Uh-huh.
What should we be doing besides continuing to learn and engage with these issues?
Be critical, be curious, and be courageous. Question the information you encounter. Seek out diverse perspectives and don't be afraid to challenge the status quo. Support organizations that align with your values, engage in thoughtful conversations with your communities, and use your voice to advocate for a more just and peaceful world.
Those are great points. I think this deep dive has been a real eye-opener, and I'm definitely going to be thinking about these issues a lot more.
That's the goal, to spark curiosity, to encourage critical thinking, and to empower you to engage with the world in a more informed and meaningful way.
Well, I think that's a perfect note to end on. Thanks for guiding me through this deep dive. It's been a fascinating and thought-provoking journey.
It's been my pleasure. And remember, even amidst global uncertainty, staying informed and engaged is crucial. Keep asking questions, keep exploring, and keep fighting for the future you want to see.
Until next time, folks, stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is like something out of a James Bond movie when you think about it like that.
There's definitely a certain allure to the world of espionage.
Right.
But the reality is far more complex and often less glamorous than Hollywood portrays it.
For sure.
These are real people making life or death decisions
Yeah.
in a world of ambiguity and moral compromises.
It makes you wonder, how effective is covert action, really? Can it actually make a difference in a world where everything seems so interconnected and out in the open?
That's a question intelligence agencies grapple with constantly.
Right.
The effectiveness of covert action is difficult to measure.
Yeah.
Successes are often hidden. Failures can be catastrophic, and the long-term consequences are often unpredictable.
So it's a gamble.
Yeah,
A high-stakes game with no guarantees.
exactly. And in the context of Russia, it raises even more questions.
Okay.
We're dealing with a nation that has a long history of espionage and subversion,
Right.
a nation that's arguably a master of covert action itself.
So it's like a spy versus spy scenario.
Yeah,
A battle of wits and deception.
precisely. And it's playing out against a backdrop of escalating tensions.
Right.
A world where the lines between peace and conflict are becoming increasingly blurred.
It's all starting to feel a bit like the Cold War, with its espionage, proxy conflicts, and the constant threat of nuclear annihilation.
Yeah, that's a comparison many are making, and it's not entirely unfounded.
Right.
We're seeing a resurgence of Cold War tactics and mindsets, but with a 21st century twist.
Okay.
The battleground has shifted from physical territories to the digital realm,
Yeah.
where information is the weapon of choice.
So it's not just about bombs and missiles anymore.
It's not at all. Disinformation campaigns, cyber attacks,
Right.
the manipulation of social media. These are the new tools of warfare.
Wow.
It's about controlling the narrative, shaping public opinion, and sowing discord within your opponent's society.
It's almost like a battle for hearts and minds, like we were talking about earlier.
Exactly. And in this new battleground, perception is reality. Whoever can control the narrative can influence the outcome of events.
So what does this mean for the future of warfare?
Well, it means we need to be prepared for a new kind of conflict, one that's fought in the shadows,
Okay.
and where the lines between truth and falsehood are increasingly blurred.
Yeah.
It's a conflict where victory may not be measured in land conquered,
Right.
or enemies vanquished, but in minds swayed and narratives controlled.
It's a pretty daunting prospect.
It is, but it's not a reason to despair. Just as our adversaries are adapting to this new landscape,
Yeah.
so too must we. We
Yeah.
need to invest in cybersecurity, promote media literacy, and develop strategies for combating disinformation. We need to be more discerning consumers of information, more critical thinkers, and more active citizens.
It sounds like this new kind of warfare requires a whole new way of thinking, a
Yeah.
whole new set of skills.
It does, and it's a challenge we must embrace. The future of our democracies, our freedoms, and our very way of life may depend on it.
Well, that's a sobering thought. It seems like we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, from suspected sabotage to Reddit reactions, from hybrid warfare to the shadowy world of covert action.
We have.
It's been a wild ride,
It has.
and honestly, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed.
It's understandable to feel overwhelmed. These are complex and challenging issues, and there are no easy answers. But I hope this deep dive has given you a better understanding of the forces at play,
It has.
the stakes involved, and the choices we face as individuals and as a society.
It definitely has. It's made me realize that even though the world feels increasingly uncertain and complex, we're not powerless. We can choose to be informed, to be engaged, and to make our voices heard.
Exactly. And that's what gives me hope. In the face of these daunting challenges, there are countless individuals and organizations working tirelessly to promote peace, defend democracy, and uphold truth. And each of us has the power to join that fight.
I think that's a great point and a really good thing to keep in mind.
Yeah.
So I think that's about all the time we have for today.
Okay.
Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into Russia and the global landscape. It's been a fascinating and at times terrifying journey.
It has. It's been a pleasure.
But ultimately, I think it's left us with a sense of hope and empowerment. We're not powerless in the face of these challenges.
No, we're not.
We can make a difference, and it starts with staying informed, engaged, and active in our communities.
I agree.
So to our listeners out there, keep asking questions, keep exploring, and keep fighting for the future you want to see. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged.